What if the world as you know it changed overnight? A chilling thought, isn't it? Yet, not a far-fetched one. We live in a world where stability is often an illusion, a deceptive veil that masks the potential for sudden disruptive change. This tranquility can shatter overnight, leaving in its wake shortages, panic buying, and a society scrambling for survival. Imagine waking up to empty store shelves, skyrocketing prices, and a world in chaos. It's not a matter of if, but when. The current peace we enjoy is fragile, liable to disruptions that could occur without warning. The essential supplies we take for granted could vanish in an instant, leaving us vulnerable and unprepared. Therefore, the time to prepare is now, while resources are still available and affordable. Procrastination isn't just risky, it's a gamble with your life and that of your loved ones. Remember, when the storm hits, it's too late to start building your ark. The time to prepare is now, while resources are still available and affordable. When society crumbles, what are the first things to vanish from store shelves? Well, it's not the luxury items or the latest tech gadgets, it's the basics, things we often take for granted in our daily lives. Water, the essence of life, will be the first to go. It's a basic necessity for survival, and without it, life becomes a ticking time bomb. Then comes non-perishable foods, canned goods, dried beans, rice. These items provide sustenance when fresh food becomes a distant memory. They're long-lasting, easy to store, and require minimal preparation, making them a prime target for panic shoppers. Medicines, too, disappear at an alarming rate. Prescription medications, over-the-counter remedies, first aid supplies, these are the lifelines for many, especially those with chronic conditions. In a crisis, the supply chain for these essential items can be disrupted, leading to a severe shortage. And let's not forget ammunition. In times of social unrest and lawlessness, security becomes paramount. Ammunition for self-defense purposes becomes as valuable as gold, and it's one of the first things to be swept off the shelves. This is the phenomenon of panic shopping. As fear and uncertainty take hold, people rush to stores grabbing whatever they can lay their hands on. It's a domino effect. As more people see emptying shelves, they too are propelled into a buying frenzy, leading to instant scarcity. But here's the crux of the matter. Panic shopping is not strategic, it's reactionary, driven by fear rather than reason. It leaves many vulnerable and unprepared, scrambling for resources once the dust settles. That's why it's crucial to act now, while stability still holds. Start gathering these essential supplies today before they become scarce. It's not about hoarding, but about preparing. It's about ensuring you have the means to survive when society's safety nets fail. So, don't be left vulnerable and unprepared. Start gathering these essential supplies today. Your future self will thank you. Survival isn't about hoarding. It's about strategic planning. The art of strategic stockpiling is akin to chess. It's about predicting your needs, understanding your opponent, in this case potential crises, and making smart, calculated moves ahead of time. The truth is, if you're waiting until disaster strikes to start gathering supplies, you're already behind the curve. Let's start with the basics. Water, food, medicine, and ammunition. These are the pillars of any survival strategy, but it's not enough to have these items. You need to have enough of them to last. The average person requires about a gallon of water per day for drinking and sanitation, and about 2,000 calories from food. Multiply that by the number of people in your household and the estimated duration of the crisis, and you start to get an idea of the quantities you'll need. But here's the thing. Stockpiling isn't about filling your basement with canned goods overnight. It's a gradual process. Start by adding a few extra items to your shopping list each week. Buy in bulk when you can. Look for sales and discounts. Slowly but surely, your stockpile will grow. And remember, variety is key. Don't just stack up on canned beans and bottled water. Think about nutrition and balance. Include different types of grains, proteins, fruits, vegetables, and comfort foods. Not only will this provide a balanced diet, it will also prevent food fatigue, a very real problem during prolonged crises. Next, consider your storage space. Keep your supplies organized and rotate them regularly to prevent spoilage. Use a first-in, first-out system. This ensures that you're always using the oldest items first, and that nothing goes to waste. Lastly, don't forget about non-food items like toilet paper, soap, batteries, and first aid supplies. These are often overlooked, but they are just as important. Strategic stockpiling is a marathon, not a sprint. It requires thought, patience, and consistency. But it's worth it. Because when disaster strikes, the last thing you want to worry about is where your next meal will come from. Strategic stockpiling is your first step towards preparedness. When the safety nets of society collapse, your survival gear becomes your lifeline. Picture this. It's the aftermath of a disaster and you're left to fend for yourself. No running water, no electricity, and certainly no emergency services. In this scenario, your survival gear isn't just convenient, it's vital. Let's talk about the critical gear you need to have on hand. Gear that will mean the difference between life and death in a crisis. First on the list is a reliable water purification system. Clean water is a non-negotiable, but when the taps run dry, you'll need a way to make unsafe water drinkable. There are many choices, from simple iodine tablets to intricate filtration systems. Choose the one that best suits your needs and stock up. Next, you'll need a dependable source of light. This could be anything from a hand-crank flashlight to solar-powered lanterns. Don't forget to consider the longevity and reliability of your light source. Third, a comprehensive first aid kit is a must. This should include everything from bandages and antiseptics to prescription medications and a guidebook on emergency medical procedures. Remember, you might not have access to professional medical help, so it's essential to have supplies to treat injuries and illnesses on your own. Food is another non-negotiable. While it's important to have a stockpile of non-perishable foods, consider also having hunting and fishing gear. This will allow you to supplement your food supply and provide a measure of self-sufficiency. Finally, you'll need a sturdy, multi-purpose tool. Whether it's a Swiss Army knife or a more specialized survival tool, this item will be invaluable when it comes to building shelter, preparing food, and countless other survival tasks. These are just the basics, of course. Your personal survival gear will depend on your specific needs and circumstances. But remember, the key is to prepare now, while these items are still readily available and affordable. Equip yourself with these non-negotiables while you still can. It's not about living in fear, it's about being ready for whatever comes your way. Because when the world as we know it unravels, the right gear can make all the difference. In a crisis, prices don't just rise, they skyrocket. This is the harsh reality of economic fallout, a domino effect that begins with a sudden event or disaster, leading to panic buying and instant scarcity of essential goods. But it doesn't stop there. As supply drops and demand soars, the cost of what little is left becomes astronomical, making it virtually impossible for the average person to acquire the necessities for survival. This is not a scare tactic, but a stark look at the economic instability that can occur overnight. We've seen it before, in times of war, in the aftermath of natural disasters, and even during global pandemics. The cost of living shoots up while incomes remain stagnant or even disappear as businesses close and jobs are lost. The result? A widening gap between what people can afford and what they need to survive. Now imagine this scenario in a world where the shelves are already empty, where life-saving medicines and critical supplies are scarce, and where the price of a loaf of bread or a gallon of water is 10 times what it is today. That's the potential cost of waiting, of not preparing while the getting is good, but there's a silver lining. By preparing now, by securing the essentials before a crisis hits, you can navigate these choppy economic waters. Stockpiling food, water, medicine, and other necessities now is not just a smart move, it's cost-effective. Think of it as an investment in your future, a hedge against the inflation that is inevitable when disaster strikes. The bottom line is this: the cost of preparation is a fraction of the cost of survival in a post-crisis world. It's the difference between being at the mercy of skyrocketing prices and being secure in the knowledge that you have what you need to weather the storm. Act now and secure your essentials before the cost becomes prohibitive. Remember, in a world of chaos and scarcity, the best investment you can make is in your survival. In a post-SHTF world, isolation isn't just lonely, it's deadly. The world after a catastrophe is not one where you can afford to be a lone wolf. You see, survival isn't just about having the right supplies or skills, it's also about the people you surround yourself with, your community. Think about it, alone you can only do so much. But together, as a community, you can watch each other's backs, pool resources, share skills, and provide mutual aid. Building a community network isn't just about gathering a group of people, it's about forging alliances, fostering trust, and building relationships. It's about knowing who you can count on when the chips are down, and who can count on you. Forming these alliances isn't something you can do overnight. It takes time and effort. It's about building bonds before disaster strikes, so when it does, you're not alone. And remember, community isn't just about survival, it's also about maintaining our humanity in the face of adversity. It's about helping each other, not just because it increases our chances of survival, but because it's the right thing to do. Start building your community today. Your survival may depend on it. When disaster strikes, knowledge becomes as vital as any survival tool. This isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a truth that every seasoned prepper knows. But let's break it down. Survival skills training isn't about becoming an action hero, it's about equipping yourself with the knowledge that could mean the difference between life and death. First aid, for instance, is a fundamental skill. In a crisis, emergency services might be overwhelmed or unreachable. Knowing how to treat wounds, recognize symptoms of shock, or perform CPR could save a life, maybe even your own. Then there's self-defense. No, we're not suggesting you become a martial arts expert overnight. But understanding the basics can offer some level of protection when law and order break down. And how about basic survival skills? Can you start a fire without matches? Do you know how to purify water? Could you build a basic shelter? These skills might seem primitive in our modern world, but they become essential when the comforts of civilization are stripped away. Lastly, let's not forget mental strength. Dealing with stress, fear, and uncertainty is a skill in itself. Training your mind to stay calm and focused can guide you through the most challenging situations. So, don't underestimate the power of knowledge. Invest time now in learning these life-saving skills. Equip yourself with knowledge. It might just save your life.